Okay.
Good, thank you. Welcome everybody to the April 2023 meeting of the Curriculum Subcommittee. Shall we just go ahead and approve the minutes for March? Can I get a motion to approve? If there are any questions or comments before we go forward? Sound good?
Move that the Curriculum Committee approve the March 2023 meeting minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. March minutes are approved.
Great. All right, so welcome everyone. Just want to remind us of our purpose of our curriculum subcommittee meeting and our norms. The purpose of the Board of Education curriculum subcommittee meeting is to collaborate between the Board of Education stakeholders and school-based leadership to discuss all aspects of curricula, instruction, assessment, student achievement, school culture, and climate in the Weston Public Schools. The environment today is obviously virtual, the meeting that we're hosting, and we want to remind ourselves that we want to keep our cameras on at all times when possible. Make sure that our microphones are muted unless we are speaking. Be present and engaged. Always seek to understand and keep discussion and comments on topic according to the agenda. We want to call people in and not call people out. So we do have a couple items on the agenda this afternoon. Want to be mindful of the time. We do have a 1 hour hard stop today so that the rest of the board members can get to the following meeting this afternoon on time, which is fine because we just have a couple updates around the curriculum and instruction side prior to welcoming Meredith Starzik, our high school secondary counselor. Meredith, what is the actual title? I always screw this up.
Technically, I am the director of school counseling. However, I am 912.
Director of 912 School Counseling. Okay, got it. Thank you. We do have a presentation that Meredith will guide us through around SAT and ACT and the overview of that standardized assessment, which our students did complete in March, and the use of that assessment and any discussion around some changes that we've had over the years, especially since COVID, and other ways that we can support parents and families understand the purpose of that assessment in preparation for and also how it's utilized in the district. This was a request from our last curriculum committee meeting. It was very timely, so it was really important that we included Meredith in that conversation because she's an expert and boots on the ground with that work with her department at the high school. And lives and breathes it every day. So thanks, Meredith, for coming in and putting together that presentation. Prior to Meredith presenting this afternoon, I just want to give 4 quick updates. One is around literacy. So we are moving towards our transition to our new core resource for literacy. We are still moving forward with the American Reading Company as our choice on a district level. Our district literacy committee has been in constant communication and research around the 6 different programs that the state has adopted as on the approved literacy list, according to the Science of Reading. We still are in full transparency. We are still researching and still confirming that that is the best fit for Weston. The American Reading Company is still our top choice, and we're still diving deep into other districts that are using it. Their successes, some areas that they would have done differently in their adoption, and so we're learning from them as we go. We are still collaborating with the Connecticut, the CES, which stands for the Cooperative Educational Service Center in Trumbull, to help guide and work with us in our transition. We're actually in the process of developing a look for tool to help us gather data around our current practices around literacy instruction in K through 5 to help us with our professional development plan moving into next school year. And we will begin our final presentations to parents beginning in May, specifically in grades K through 5, because we know that we have our PTO meetings, which are, we're blessed to have it housed within K5, right? I mean, having one meeting to kind of talk with all parents in one setting is definitely a great opportunity for us. So beginning in May, we're going to start having conversations around Why did we need to transition? What is the science of reading? What are we doing really well in Weston that we want to keep and hold true to our values around reading instruction? And then what are some areas that we know we're going to use this opportunity to transition to a different resource to our advantage? So that's literacy. In math, we know that Bernie might be able to speak to this because she was interviewed based on her role as the curriculum leader for the Board of Education subcommittee chair. She participated in an interview with the Tri-State Consultancy visit. This was a 2.5-day visit where we had a variety of representatives from across New York and Connecticut and Massachusetts come and visit with us for 2.5 days. They conducted classroom visits and interviews with students and parents and Board of Education members, as well as principals, Lisa, myself. And it was based on 2 essential questions that we presented last time, which focused on our K-12 core curriculum and the level of access that we provide to all students that are aligned to standards, as well as our our math identity that we really wanted to understand how students felt in the math classroom and how they saw themselves as mathematicians. And so those were our 2 broad questions that we really focused our visit on this school year. And within a couple weeks, we'll have a full report from the Tri-State Visiting Committee with all of their data and everything that they've collected. So I think we're in week 2 on that wait time. And so we have a couple more weeks before we actually get that report. Next, we have our assessment, spring assessment calendar. It's kind of timely that we're talking about SAT and ACT today. We will be entering into our spring assessment windows, which include Smarter Balanced for grades 3 through 8 in math and literacy, as well as 5, 8, and 11 for science with the Next Generation Science Assessment. Parents will be getting letters and weekly updates from principals with more details around their schedule specific to their child's grade level and the building that they're currently in. So we are entering that final phase of the summative assessments for the school year that we're all very familiar with. And so please make sure, parents, if you're listening, reach out and read those emails and those letters that are coming from your principals. And then my last update is around our district professional development that we coordinated on March 20th. This was our full day professional development day that we offer 3 times a year, but March 20th was a little more unique. We actually were able to create a district committee with a variety of different representatives from that committee. And we worked to build a menu of choices for all teachers throughout the district. And we were able to offer about 54, I think there were 54 different offerings to all teachers throughout the district on that day. We also included mindfulness activities in the middle of the day after lunch. And we were able to gather a total of 545 different responses from our teachers around the day and their experience in each professional development session. I just wanted to show you real quick that we really took the teachers' feedback very seriously. We asked a variety of questions after each session to give us specific feedback around how they felt the day went, and if they would have recommended that we do some of these sessions again, or if they liked the format, did they like to be able to choose, did they like the mindfulness sessions, we had a lot of different questions. This is a quick synopsis. So we had a content area session first session, another content area session the second. We had a joy session in the middle of the day, which they got to choose different activities like yoga, mindfulness activities. Then they had 2 more sessions in the afternoon. And so you can see overall, all of our teachers, we had 550 different responses throughout the day. They really valued the day, the ability to choose. They liked the balance between content and also mindfulness activities. And we also asked them about next steps. Like if we were to continue and work on this idea around choice and a menu of choice for professional development to build their own internal capacity, what would be some set areas that they would like to grow on next? So we are looking at co-teaching models. We are looking at effective strategies to support EL students, English language learners or multilingual learners. And also they wanted to talk a little bit more about effective grading practices moving forward into next school year. So I really appreciated some of the feedback, the qualitative components that we got from our staff. They really liked the format of the day. They like to be able to give their feedback. They also appreciated that we asked them before we planned the day, what would be some sessions that they felt would be valuable to them. And we really tailored all of the sessions on March 20th to those survey responses. We also wanted to hear from them, what could we have done to make it better next time? And so we got some feedback around the timing of the sessions. We got some feedback around when to do the mindfulness activities, before or after lunch. We also got some opportunities to think about, we required staff to attend all of the sessions in the day. And so we did get some feedback that, it would be nice to maybe have one of the sessions be, not required, so that they were required to do 3 out of 4 versus all of them. So we take that into consideration moving forward, and we will use that information with the committee moving into next year when we do another round of professional development for choice. So those are my updates. Hi, Megan. How are you? Thank you for coming.
Sorry, I'm late.
No problem. And so I just wanted to open that up for a few questions before we open the presentation up to Meredith. Any questions around the tri-state visit, the literacy updates, March 20th professional development, or our assessment calendar?
Yeah, I have one on literacy going back to the first time, just because, Tina, forgive me if I've missed this somewhere else, but I didn't realize that there was still some vetting going on with the American Reading Company. So that's the first I've heard of it. And I know we have a tight agenda today. Don't have to get into it deeply, but
Sure.
Is there any update about, to me, that sounds like a new update or new information, but maybe that was never like fully vetted as the final choice and I'm missing something, but can you give us a bit more detail about that?
Sure. Real quick. So we had to give our best decision by December 14th, I think it was, for the state of Connecticut, which we did, which was American Reading Company. There are 6, as you know, there are 6 different tools. We have used a lot of our time to evaluate and call presenters in to present to the District Literacy Committee. We have a rubric that each member of the committee used to evaluate the programs that came in to present. One program, we never had a chance to have them come in and officially present. So there's still one that we want to make sure that American Reading Company is still at the top of our list. We believe it still will be, but we want to just, make sure we can all sleep at night and ask the right questions and make sure that we engage in additional conversations before we make that final, write that final check.
Sure.
And the last company, we are finalizing that this week. We have one more conversation with not only the company, but a school that has been using the program for 3 years as well. And so we want to ask the same questions that we've asked the other companies, just to make sure that we feel confident we've vetted all of them to the fullest extent possible.
Okay. Can you, I know last time was a bit of an unveiling about this. Can you share the name of the one we have not vetted yet? Or is that,
EL Education is the last one that we really have not had a full presentation on, nor have we had further conversation with another district. We're finalizing that conversation this week. And then we will, the team and I will definitely say, yes, this is what we thought. This is what we value as far as what we value in literacy instruction in Weston, and this is the direction we're definitely moving for. It's a lot of money. We want to make sure it's going to be a lot of time. It's a lot of professional development.
Sure.
We really want to buy in and make sure that the resource that we choose, we feel confident that that's the right one, and we want to make sure we have enough people around the table asking all their questions and making sure they feel comfortable too, because it's not a one-person decision, it's a district decision.
Totally. Is there a group of finalists, or is it American Reading Company and you're just vetting others in case they somehow displace it. But American Reading Company is clearly the choice so far.
It's clearly the choice so far. This is the last one that we really want to make sure we asked enough questions and we dove into the resource enough. You can see it, it's right behind me. That's all, every grade level.
Yeah.
And so we're still just making sure that that's the final iteration of our decision making. And when we say we roll up our sleeves and we dive in, we really pick every single one apart. And so we needed a little bit more time with that one last resource, but so far it does appear that we've been making the right decision all along, but we just want to make sure we have one more opportunity to ask the right questions.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So Meredith and Megan, I know Meredith is going to share her screen, and she's going to take us through just an overview of SAT, ACT, and some background that she's been gathering over the years, and some of the transition from how we've been using that assessment as far as accountability pieces, as well as college admissions. And then we want to be able to open the floor to anyone that has additional questions for Meredith while we have her. So Meredith, thank you so much for putting this presentation together, and the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. So I'm just going to pull up the presentation now. Let's see. I actually am having issues. Tina, can you do it on your end at all? Thanks. Perfect, thank you. Okay, so standardized testing. This is just a general overview. I'm going to give you of some of the tests that our students are taking, a little description about them, how the students are using them in the college admissions process, and kind of what's changed over the years prior to COVID and currently. So we're going to start off with the PSAT. The PSAT is obviously a practice SAT that is put on by College Board. It is given to 10th and 11th graders every year in October. Just like the SAT, it measures skills in reading, writing, and math, just like the students are learning in their classroom. The highest score of a PSAT is a 1520, which is lower than an SAT. According to College Board, the PSAT average score is about a 920 for students nationwide. And they also report that a score of 1210 or higher puts a student in the top 10% of all test takers. One nice thing about the PSAT for all of our students is it gives them a great score report when they get their test results that breaks it down into content areas. So within math, what types of skills did a student maybe struggle on? And also bringing them to the actual test questions that they did not get correct. And from there, it gives them tips and skills on what they can do to improve. So when they take the SAT, some areas that they would like to focus on. So that's a great resource. And as well, they do have that free partnership with Khan Academy, which is great for our students as well. As juniors, the juniors have an opportunity to qualify for national merit when they take the PSAT. The cutoff for national merit does change every year, and that cutoff score represents the top 1% of test takers in the state of Connecticut. So you're compared to your state. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Next slide, we talk about AP. Now for advanced placement, a lot of students get recommended to take advanced placement courses based on their PSAT scores. College Board does send out letters to families. The state of Connecticut also partners with them as well. And so it's a great information when we're doing course recommendations for our students with advanced placement. So if you're not familiar with advanced placement courses, these are courses that some institutions at the higher level will give students college credit for. The scores are anywhere from 1 to a 5. And generally for students to get credit at a higher institution, they're looking for 3, 4s, and 5s. So that's a great opportunity for our students to get some college credit while they're still in high school. Just to give you a little information about us specifically, last year we had 283 students take AP courses, or at least one AP course, which is 40% of the students. And that covered 808 total AP exams that were administered last May. And so on the next slide, I just wanted to show you a list of all the AP courses that we have at Weston High School. So you can see that we have 23 unique courses, which I think for our school and our size is really great that we're able to offer all of these courses to our students. So I just wanted to just give you that visual just to kind of show you the courses that we do offer. And they're in our program of studies as well. So that's AP. The next slide is going to be SAT. So the SAT has changed over the years. Initially, it was based on a 1600, and it was called 800 for your verbal section and 800 for math. And then around 2006, College Board added 800 more points for a writing section for an essay. So the total score went to 2,400. And we had that with us until about 2016 when College Board went back to 2 sections. They are now called evidence-based reading and writing is worth 800 points, and the mathematics section with is 800 points. So we're back to a total of 1,600 total points for the SAT. A student's range, like I said, can range from anywhere from 400 to 1,600 points. This is going back to 2019. They believe some of their statistics are a little bit more accurate from 2019 because it's prior to COVID and when more people were taking the exam, that the average score was about 1050. And then a score of 1350 would put you in the top 10% of test takers for applications for selective schools and so on. Okay, and that's the SAT. And then that's going to move us to SAT School Day. So SAT School Day, I'm sure you are aware, is the test that our juniors just took in March. This is the state requirement for all juniors. This is how our participation rates by the state and the scores contribute to the next generation accountability system. So this is the test that the state of Connecticut would like to use. Also, students can choose to use these scores from this test date for their college application process. They could also choose not to. So it's up to the students whether they would like to use the SAT School Day scores moving forward, or they can choose not to. And as far as the accessing these scores are just like any other Saturday test that they take. The scores will appear in their College Board account. And again, like I said, they can choose to use them, they can choose not to use them. And for the last 2 years, SAT has been digital for SAT School Day, and it will remain that way as well. And actually, the SAT, the national SAT given on Saturdays, is going to become digital for all students starting spring of 2024. So College Board is going to be moving out a new platform for all of their national test dates as well. And actually, I failed to mention that the PSAT that will be given to our sophomores and juniors in this coming October will be digital. The next slide, I talked about the other standardized test that is used in college admissions is the ACT. So similar to the SAT, it measures students in English, math, reading. However, it does have a scientific reasoning section as well. That is the one difference. And a lot of the scientific reasoning section is also a lot of reading comprehension. So I know it says science on here, but that they're also testing for the reading comprehension. Students can score anywhere from 1 to 36. They are given a composite score of all the sections, and they're also given individual section scores so students can see how they fare in each area. And again, that's from 1 to 36. ACT college readiness benchmarks. The College Board also has benchmarks for the SAT, and it assesses a student's ability for college readiness and college readiness coursework. And that is something, again, that can be taken into account when we're looking at course selection and any AP courses that students want to be taking moving forward. And again, this is also another measure that is used for our next gen accountability system with the state as well. Prior to COVID, it is interesting to note that we did see an increase in students taking the ACT. Traditionally, the SAT has been a test that a lot of our students have taken, but then the ACT has grown prior to COVID, and the number of students taking the exam from our school. And the next slide. So now we are talking about post-COVID. So what schools require standardized testing? So one great website is called fairtest.org, and they will give information on all schools and what their requirements are, because this has been changing over the years, obviously, for many reasons. And so right here in this slide, you can see the only schools right now, separate from the Naval Academy, and some of the other academies, that require students to submit SAT or ACT scores. Of note on here, you're going to see a lot of Florida schools. The state of Florida requires all of their public institutions to require standardized testing. I think it's part of one of their measures for accountability, even though some of the university schools have said they wish they could go test optional as well, but the state is requiring them. So you can see some of the higher institutions as well. MIT and Georgetown are two of the ones that are at the current point requiring standardized testing. So you can see there's definitely a trend in a lot of schools, actually 3,900 four-year post-secondary schools out there who do not require standardized testing at this point. Even the big state of California in 2021, after doing it for 60 years, said we're not requiring standardized testing anymore. And with this, we've seen, obviously a drop in the numbers of students taking these assessments. I can give one example. We are a national test center for the SAT, and we actually are giving it nationally on this May 6th is that Saturday. We normally, for that assessment, have about 180 students registered to take the test. Currently, we have 43. So I think that kind of gives you an idea of the students also who are registering to take some of these assessments based on the amount of schools who are requiring them. In 2021, just of note as well, 51% of students who applied to college via the Common App submitted scores. So just about half of the people who applied are submitting the scores. So that's kind of good to note as well. And then the next slide talks about, so how do we advise our students? We have this change in standardized testing. Do I send my scores? Do I not send my scores? Obviously, it depends on the schools that you're interested in. So if you're interested in Georgetown and MIT, yes, obviously we talk about standardized testing, and we talk about how it's going to be important for those schools. But we start doing this in December with our juniors on our college kickoff. And in that meeting, it's great. It's good timing, because in December is when students will get their PSAT scores back. So it's a great place to start when we're talking about moving forward for any future standardized testing or what the student's plan may look like. All students after that time will start having individual counseling meetings with their counselor, their parents, and Miss Green, our college and career center counselor. And that's where we really start looking at their areas of interest, how they do on their PSAT. From those meetings, some students may say, I've taken some standardized tests, I'm applying to schools that don't require them, and I think I'm done. And I think, that's, they're going to take the March, obviously SAT, but they may not use it. Okay. So as a standard rule of thumb, we are encouraging students, if they fall in the top 50% of what the college is looking for, to send their scores. Okay. So that's where we start having these conversations based on their areas of interest and their lists of whether students are going to be sending them. And this goes on throughout the year. Sometimes students will take the SAT school day and just to kind of see as a thermometer of how they're doing. Maybe a student would like to take an ACT just to see if they do any differently from the SAT. So again, they're all individual, unique conversations that we have with our students and Ms. Green, obviously. So there's seminars that we have for our juniors throughout the year that kind of talks about this, making sure that they're staying on top of all deadlines and what colleges require. We also do Camp College in early August, which kind of works through the whole common application for our students and securing their lists and making sure all the students have what they need for requirements. And also too, of note, it's really nice that we have Ms. Green, who works solely with seniors from August until December. So she gives them her full attention for any questions that may come up with any kind of advising or questions that they may have about requirements of certain schools, certain majors, or certain programs. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what we do after when we get all the information based on standardized testing and some of the student interests. And that is what I had. If anyone has any questions.
I have a
Great
couple,
job,
but I'll
Meredith.
let others go first if they want to, since I kicked off last time. David or Bernadette, you have any
Yeah.
questions?
I have a couple of questions that actually ties into the AP and honors piece of it, which is, so we have a subset of students that take AP courses and honor courses. We also have a subset of students, which I have a close connection to, who takes honors classes, but also is very gifted in the sports area.
Mhm.
And for our students who are gifted in the athletics area, they need to start thinking about college sophomore year. And I can tell you, my experience has been, how do we as a district sort of guide students potentially a little bit in their sophomore year, when I know this is not necessarily SAT related directly, but it's more about preparing our students to move on to college. How are we working with those students potentially in their early sophomore year, when really the college planning doesn't begin until junior year?
I think I can address, when we talk about post-secondary planning, what still remains the number one important thing to the colleges when they're reading applications is the high school transcript. And when it comes down to the high school transcript, they're looking at, are students challenging themselves appropriately? Right? Are they choosing courses that match, their ability, right? And their areas of interest, which are really important. So we want to make sure students are exploring certain areas of majors or, so many post-secondary programs that they may want to go into. So really what it starts with us when it comes to post-secondary planning is the course selection meetings that we have, and making sure that we help them with their transition to high school and we help them perform well in their classes. So we start with that. And then actually we are having a sophomore parent coffee to talk to some parents about junior year and what to look forward to in coming in junior year, as kind of an overview to answer some of those questions of what's going to be coming up. However, we do feel like the most important thing when they're coming in freshman and sophomore year is that course selection piece and doing the best that they can in their classes and transitioning to the high school and getting involved and all those fun things as well. And so we like to focus on those things freshman and sophomore year and then get into the other things junior year.
Okay, so if students are taking AP, or actually refresh me, so I know there's honors and there's AP. Is that a different distinction?
In the sense of curriculum, it is. However, we do weight the courses the same. They are both weighted equally as far as GPA goes. However, our honors courses are, Weston High School curriculum. AP courses are College Board specific AP curriculum.
Okay. And when does AP open up to students? At what grade level?
We will have some sophomores take AP, specifically maybe in computer science and some of our other courses. Generally, our students will start taking more of them in junior year.
Okay. So, and AP is what gives you the college credit as well. Is that right?
It can. So they will all take exams in May, and depending on how well they do and depending on the requirements of each school, because each school is looking for a different cutoff, they may get credit for it.
Okay. So the basis of the question is, so if a student does decide to take an AP course, it can help, that credit potentially can be used later either to get into a school or actually credit for a school, because it's happening AP in junior year, and because they're going to start their college exploration in their junior year, that the timing it can be strategic as far as the courses they take and the college you might be interested in.
Yep.
Okay. And I have one other question to hijack. As far as getting into honors classes, I know this is a conversation that we've had in the past. I believe Bernie and I have actually had a sidebar conversation about this some time ago. Can you just go over again what the criteria is for a student to potentially get into an honors course?
Sure. So there is a grade criteria, and there's also the criteria of a teacher recommendation. So both need to be met in order for a student to take an honors or an AP course. The grade requirement depends on the student's current course, if they're in a standard or an honors class. And then again, the teacher recommendation. And those those recommendations were made when the parent portal was live. And if a student met both of that criteria, they were able to select that class. If a student did not meet both of that criteria, however, would still like to take the class, students were offered the opportunity to fill out a waiver form to be reconsidered.
Okay. And on the waiver side, is that something that is well known among the students, that even though they have not obtained potentially the scores in their existing class load and they haven't been recommended by a teacher, there is an option for them? Are they aware of that and understand the process on that?
They are, and actually that's another thing I really love about our school is because of our size, our school counselors are able to meet individually with all of our students for course selection appointments, and we actually are the ones that hold the waivers. So we are having those conversations with the students, and if they are disappointed they were not recommended for a certain course, we have that conversation with them. We talk about it and their reasoning for why in that course and overall schedule, and if we feel like that's a great thing to move forward to, we give the student the waiver and they bring it back to us.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple questions too. I know that a lot of classes with the AP College Board program. Has there any been thought about moving to like ECE, the early college experience credits versus College Board, and whether or not our students could take advantage of that?
Sure. I think we definitely have talked about possibly doing ECE. Again, we actually did do ECE a long time ago. So that is something that we could talk about, we dual enrollment programs. I think that's, a great conversation to have. I don't think we talked about maybe doing either or. I think it'd be maybe like in addition to, but I think, Mrs. Ward can kind of maybe speak to that a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't think the ECE and AP are exclusive. So typically when schools are doing that, you might be thinking of IB, which is the International Baccalaureate, which typically if a school is an IB school, they're not an AP school, and vice versa. I think we will begin looking at ECE and where we can have those offerings. Again, that's all part of the process of courses. I know just in my previous experience, we are subscribing to the course syllabus and the curriculum of UConn. Right. So it really is about course development, getting that approval. It's a process, a new course proposal coming from us to the board. So it is. And then looking at where we might have any gaps. So for example, I could be dating myself, but I'm pretty sure it still exists. UConn ECE, for example, offers, I think, a digital art class, for example. So while we have digital art, we might not have it at that college level, but that might be a way to give kids access to some credit there. We also partner with the Norwalk Community College, right, Meredith, with our high school partnership. So that's another way for students to access some college credit as well.
Yeah, the cost of college and students potentially having the ability to have got UConn-based credits when they graduate that might have a different acceptance rate than AP credits might, because I don't want to misspeak, but not all schools will always accept AP college credit as course credit towards graduation and in place of another class.
Yes.
And ECE might have a different acceptance in those colleges.
We also, through our Project Lead the Way program, students do have the option to apply for college credit through Project Lead the Way, where they produce a college transcript as well, similar to what UConn would do, similar to what NCC would do, where then you're providing a college transcript to your school acceptance, right? Versus, Meredith, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. So in terms of, Bernie, to your point, I think over the years, Meredith, correct me if I'm wrong, but the likelihood potentially of getting college credit through an AP course has waned a little. And now we have those ECE high school partnerships, Project Lead the Way with leading to those college transcripts, which again, not a guarantee, but there's a difference between the college transcript versus the potential for a college accepting those AP scores as credit.
Yeah, I mean, to be very transparent, a lot of it was the colleges were losing money. I mean, students were coming in with almost 1 year already done. So that's why they kind of raised the bar over the years on what they'll accept.
Makes sense. My next question is about the PSAT and ninth grade specifically. It doesn't sound like we give our ninth graders the PSAT, but is that something we've thought about or not thought about, or?
We have thought about that. There was a preliminary plan to give our ninth graders the PSAT in the fall, and we went with the NWEA this year. So we're doing that testing 3 times a year, and really just being mindful of the amount of testing our students are undergoing. We did not think it was appropriate to pursue that ninth grade PSAT.
Okay. And so not doing ninth grade PSAT and more students opting out of potentially taking the SAT, how does that affect our school report card?
Our
At all,
overall
does
like
it?
accountability report card.
Yeah, did they count how many students are taking them? And
So when you look at, our accountability standards are very high. I mean, as you know, we're a school of distinction. So in terms, I don't believe it's affecting any of our ratings in terms of the number of students participating.
No.
Meredith, what was our participation rate this year?
Like 99.
Right.
Yeah. So in that's based, so the accountability is based off of SAT school day. So we're not being held accountable on any of the Saturday assessments or any of those.
Yeah, remember, Bernie, kids
Or
can
did the
take
PSAT?
SAT more than once, right? And so the requirement for participation and how it in fact impacts our next generation accountability indicator is based on that SAT school day. There's never an issue in Weston. We have our students comply. They do their best. They come in, and we've got great results based on our math and our ELA scores in Weston. They do not have to use that one indicator, though, for college admissions. They can retake it after that SAT school day. And right, Meredith, they can take the highest score and submit that to colleges.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they recommend actually taking it more than once. We talked about that, I think, last time a little bit too.
just my last question, it kind of piggybacks a little bit off of what David was talking about. If you've got students who have interest very strong in the sports area or the music area or the performing arts, what kinds of resources are available for them if they're looking at conservatories or scholarships and things like that?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I have to say, Randy Green, our college and career counselor, is amazing in that area. She is so well versed in the different programs that are out there. She's really great at working with recruited athletes. She's also really great with working with artists on their portfolios and how to submit them, as well as our musicals and the performances and auditions and so on. So we're very fortunate that she works solely with our students and can help guide them through that process.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just a couple of questions that we haven't gotten to yet. First of all, is the PSAT that we administer, is it required or mandatory, or is that optional for students to take?
We strongly encourage, because we do it on a school day, that all sophomores and juniors take it.
The PSAT, okay.
The PSAT.
And the SAT is mandated by the state of Connecticut, right?
Yes.
Okay. So then I'll ask both questions together just because they might even be connected a little bit. Which is with this national trend away from the SAT, I think you referenced 3,000 some schools or whatever it is. Should we be like taking that into account or de-emphasizing it in Weston, or I guess just changing course based on where that's going nationally? And then the second question, which kind of connects to it, is this is just out of sheer ignorance, actually. Do we have any data that shows that the PSAT is a helpful thing? And what I mean by that is like different from when I took the PSAT in high school. It seems like everything that people seem to be noticing about tests is like trying to de-emphasize them, or they're concerned about stressing our students out or the level of stress pre-college or things like this. So the question really maps to like, is the PSAT helpful to our students? I know that seems like an obvious and sort of dumb question, but I'm curious.
The PSAT is also the National Merit Scholarship qualifying test.
All
So there is value in taking that test. And we did have a student this year who advanced as a finalist, which is exciting. It's a good practice test. And I think that the SAT it's not removed from, that application process. I think it's also a state accountability measure, right? It's our state test for 11th grade. So
Yep.
there is still value there for us as like
national merit. Sorry, you're right. You said it earlier. Makes sense.
No, and I think also too, the PSAT does give a lot of great valuable data and feedback to the students on their strengths and weaknesses in their classroom skills. So whether they're going to be taking the SAT or moving on to other standardized testing, it's great information for them to know, even working in their classes. And I have to say, it is an underutilized tool. I usually get percentages on how our students are taking advantage of that free service. And I want to say it's usually around like 30% of our students are actually taking advantage of that score report. So I think it's a great tool that can be used for their classroom as well.
Okay.
And that link to Khan Academy, I think, is another underutilized resource that links very seamlessly for kids. So there is value certainly in preparation and the reflection on what students are doing in their curriculum in the high school.
Okay. Thanks.
I actually have a question, Meredith. Regarding the application for students going to college. So now that there's so many more colleges becoming test optional, I know it may swing the other way. Have you seen any changes to the way in which kids have to apply to college? Like, has the application changed at all? No, huh?
It hasn't. No, the common application is the same. It's just now they're just choosing to not report their scores in that section. Yeah.
So you don't see like they have to do a portfolio or something. It's if they've required it, they always required it. If they didn't, they don't require it still.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you.
I will add, David, to your point earlier about athletics. Athletics department also hosts a Get Recruited Zoom. I know they did it this year, which was in the fall, that, any grade level student can attend that. I actually happen to attend the same speaker, but in person in my home district. And the advice to students and aspiring athletes is very consistent with the advice that our counselors are giving, about fit, about, getting to know who you are, getting to know those things that you like, and even don't let athletics drive your kind of purpose and mission in finding your college. You first have to figure out if it's a right fit for you as a person in the course of study, and then you figure out, if it's also going to be a fit for you athletically. So we are very consistent in that message.
Yeah, and I think just piggybacking on what Bernie touched on as well is that we do have, I always think about like our subset of students. As you all know, I'm a big vocational student advocate. So the basis of my question was sort of along the lines of when you have a student who's in company or athletics or some other club, and they're dedicated, that's what they envision themselves in, and they're good. In freshman year, they start to get legitimate recruitment. I know a handful of students who are freshmen. I think it's insane, but I do know a handful of freshmen on the athletic side who have committed to a school. Now, again, I think that that's a bit premature, but it's happening. And so do the parents have a resource within the district to go to? And at what grade level are we as a district ready to help these students? And what it sounds like is there is some help as early as fall for athletics, but we really kick in junior year. We don't, in the sophomore year, it's still a bit premature other than.
Well, I think that's where the individualization and the counselors really knowing their kids, right? Whether they're, and they're meeting with their coaches and their teachers as well. The teachers in our performing and visual arts area as well are very experienced and have students that have gone on to pursue different avenues there. So I think really working as a team, we have really served our kids really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think too, to that note, I mean, the NCAA actually has regulations on when students can be
I
recruited.
was gonna say,
So
I don't think they can commit in freshman year.
they're not supposed to.
They might be showing some interest.
Junior year. It's on
They're
our
not,
calendar.
they're not committing.
Yeah. And again, we also really want to work with those families because, you know, sometimes coaches get these families and these children all hyped up about the school and they're going to go and they're going to get in, and admissions is actually the one that gives them their acceptances, not the coaches. So we really want to work with those families so they don't get, you know, led astray on feeling like this is like, you know, a shoe-in, right? So we want to make sure that's why we work with them on that as well. And also too, you're going back to what Megan was talking about, the whole fit of the school. I remember having a baseball player who was so set on playing baseball at Middlebury, so excited, got into Middlebury to play baseball, got injured, couldn't play baseball, and was miserable at the school. So again, it's like trying to make sure we cover all those bases and making sure we're finding the right fit for our students.
Yeah. The best advice that I heard Meredith say, that I think it was Mrs. Green talking about it, was, you know, a lot can change from freshman year to senior year, right? And really focusing on your best self through academics first, because that is what's going to be the foundation of wherever you go. I just know my two kids right now, freshman and sophomore, they're in the thick of this, and we cannot emphasize enough to just focus on the academics right now. Like, everything else will work out, and it's a long way away between committing to a school or saying like, I'm going to Princeton, I'm going to UPenn. Like, let's not even say that. Let's keep all of the doors open, because a lot can change between freshman, sophomore year and that senior year, you know, stepping off the campus and onto the next campus. So, you know, the more we can try to keep our kids open-minded and think broadly and enjoy the time that they have in high school, because it goes by so fast. I think that's a healthy approach. And, you know, if kids get opportunities, I think that's the struggle, right? Sometimes the schools get really excited for kids, and they get kids excited, sometimes too much, right? And then they have these narrow pigeonholed mindset that this is the only place that they're set to go, and sometimes it blindfolds them to some other doors or opportunities that may present themselves over the course of time. So well, Meredith, that was great. Thank you, Megan. You guys are phenomenal. Always love having you on and sharing your expertise. I know I was taking diligent notes. Meredith knows every time I have a question, I ask her about this process and like, what could we always do to kind of make it more smooth and help our kids along. So we're very lucky to have both of you helping all of the parents and the kids throughout this process. So I'm sure if there's more questions that resonate with us, we can always circle back to either one of you. They're always very open to answering further questions. So thank you again. I really appreciate your time and the time that you putting the presentation together.
Thank you, Meredith. This presentation was all Meredith, so thank you.
Thanks.
Well, you both are great, but Meredith, thank you for putting the presentation.
You got it.
So just going back to, I'm sorry, we're good with that, with the presentation? We can close and move back to the agenda? Great. So that actually concludes the agenda topics. I just want to let you know that there's 2 items on the agenda that I put for next meeting, which is in May. Can't believe we're going to say May. If I could actually bring up I just lost it. Hold on. Oh. I have no idea what happened to it. Is so a couple bullet items that I will review with Bernie before the next agenda gets finalized for the May meeting. Last time, David, you did want to circle back on chronic absenteeism and that indicator around attendance and protocols and processes that we have within the district. We do have some policies around attendance and excuse absences and so on and so forth. we'll give you an update on our district attendance committee that we've been working through over the last couple months and some of the revised structures and processes. You may also find over the next couple months that we are revising some of our policies relative to this topic, because the last time some of them were updated were like 2014 or 1999, I found one. So we're going to be seeing some of those updates over the next couple months. The second bullet is I have been working with the town of Weston, the Park and Rec Department and the Youth Services Department to enhance some of the summer offerings that we provide to families and students in the summer, specifically around STEM education. I'm working with Joe and is it Charlene around some of those programs and offerings. For this summer, we are going to possibly offer one definitely in the middle grades around a junior flight school around aviation and aeronautical engineering. So that will be a new program that families will be getting information directly from the town of Weston through the Park and Rec and the Youth Services Department. So look out for that. And we are still exploring an esports option as well for the middle grades. They were mentioning that middle school sometimes we lose some interest at the middle grades in the summer, and so I've been working with them to really bring some high quality educational opportunities in the STEM area for this summer. So I'm really excited about that. And then the last is that moving into May and possibly June, I'm not exactly sure which month, we will have an academic year in review presentation by our curriculum and instruction leaders that talk about some of the successes this past school year in all areas and some of our next steps and goals that we have moving into next school year. So I just want to let you know that that's coming down the pike.
Great. Just a couple of closing comments or thoughts on the tri-state visit. During the interview, I'm so excited to hear what the tri-state report is, because the interview was incredibly thorough. I logged on. I didn't expect to see an entire panel there, but it was great. We've got local school leaders and also some from a little bit further away. So it was a nice balance of perspectives from people who are very familiar with Weston and others that were learning about it through this process. So I have high hopes for hearing about all of their findings. So that was great. And then on the idea of conferences, I'm actually leaving tomorrow for the Magnet School of America conference in Dallas. So while I'm looking for my school and listening to all the information, if there's anything good for our district, I'll keep us in mind as well for anything to bring back.
That's wonderful. Thanks, Bernie.
Yeah. Anything else, David or Chad, before we close?
No, thank you though.
All right, sounds good. So then can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn. I was queuing it up for you, Chad.
Well, so moved then, right? We'll see you guys all in a little bit, in an hour.
I'll start playing the country music for you on your way out.
All right, sounds good. Okay, bye for now.